Welcome back to ThinkTech. Welcome back to Transitional Justice. Today, we're going to have a discussion about an issue in the Horn of Africa, which is as interesting or more interesting than any other discussion we've had about the countries in the Horn of Africa. We've covered a number of them. Today, we're going to cover Ethiopia. And we have Solomon Feday. He is an Ethiopian lawyer with Project Expedite Justice. We'll talk to him in detail in a moment. Yeah, welcome to the show, Solomon. I'm really looking forward to our discussion because I think very few people around here and in the U.S. understand what is going on in Ethiopia, between Ethiopia and Sudan, and for that matter, Egypt, a very important player in all of East Africa. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jay, for having me.
So talk to us about, what the tensions are externally. And then we'll go internally as well, and we'll get to questions of, human rights, as you always do, as Project Expedite Justice always does in Ethiopia. But first, the external. My understanding is this is largely about the Blue Nile. The Blue Nile starts in a place called Lake Tana, T-A-N-A, in Ethiopia. It has an enormous amount of water, and it flows down and joins the White Nile. And services the Nile as the Nile provides nourishment, sustenance, and so many things to Egypt. And a few years ago, the people of Ethiopia agreed that they would create a huge dam, the largest dam, even larger than the Aswan Dam in Egypt, in Ethiopia at that Lake Tana along the Blue Nile, and that would change everything for Ethiopia. But now there are problems. But anyway, can you talk about what do you want to call it, the geopolitical juxtaposition of Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jay. Actually, you have given us a background perfectly. This regional, especially the things happening between the three countries, sometimes it seems external, but it's also most importantly internal. What happens in Ethiopia, for example, the Grand Renaissance Dam that Ethiopia is building is somehow an internal issue for Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. The thing is, the Blue Nile that you talked about, over 86% of the water flows from Ethiopia, and in 1959, Egypt and Sudan has decided to take all the water so that Ethiopia cannot use anything. But after a couple of years, Ethiopia has decided to take its fair share to build a dam, and which is totally only for electricity. We're not using, at least by standard of official lines, for external for electricity. And that doesn't make Egypt especially happy. And sometimes Sudan is more of flexible. Sometimes it aligns with Ethiopia. Sometimes they align with Egypt when it comes to this electricity, because Ethiopia strongly argues this dam actually helps us for not only Ethiopia, for also especially for Sudan. The dam protects, will send pure water for Sudan and Egypt. There is, especially annually, there is a huge flood in Sudan, so that Ethiopia will this dam will help Sudan saving money and also, protecting them from the floods. It's politics, especially Egypt. We believe if Ethiopia builds this dam and be stronger, and then Egypt's really afraid of that Ethiopia will actually curtail the flow of the water, not through this dam, but a stronger Ethiopia will be a threat for Egypt. That seems the official line. Nile is a national security issue for Egypt. Now, Sudan, we also share. Now there is, as you know, Jay, I have seen your program. There is an ongoing armed conflict in Sudan between National Army and Rapid Armed Forces. That also affects Ethiopia, because we share values, culture, and also large borders with Sudan. So yeah, I mean, anything happens in this region affects the other country. Yeah,
Well, let me ask you about two things that occur to me.
yeah,
Number one is, there was a treaty some time ago between
yeah.
Egypt and I guess some of the European nations. I think the U.S. might
That's
have been a party to
no,
it.
that's the UK, the Great
Yeah,
Britain.
and that
Yeah,
was that treaty was not. They did not include Ethiopia in those negotiations, even though it profoundly affected Ethiopia and Ethiopia's water. And
yeah,
water is everything in that part of the world. Is everything. These are the
absolutely.
water wars we've been anticipating for a long time. So, from a legal point of view, it would seem to me, Solomon, that Ethiopia is absolutely free to do what it wants with the
Yeah,
water from Lake Tana going down the Blue Nile, because it was not a party to the negotiations or the treaty.
yeah,
Am I right?
absolutely. I mean, the thing is like Ethiopia is in a upstream country, and the water flows 86% of the water flows from Ethiopia. And Egypt and Sudan just decided to take the water absolutely 100% between themselves.
Yeah.
And of course, Ethiopia legally argued that I mean the standard rule of the international water laws, like you do development everything, but of course without having a significant harm to the downstream countries. So I think it's not a legal issue actually.
Yeah, right. It sounds
Power
like
and dominance. Yeah,
the legalities favor
yeah,
Ethiopia. Period. End of
absolutely, yes.
story. However,
Yeah,
this is existential to Egypt.
yeah.
Egypt.
Well,
If this dam, the what is it?
the good.
The GERD
Yeah,
dam,
yeah,
is built and it's huge. And if the water is accumulated to fill the area behind the dam,
yeah,
it means that the water supply from the Blue Nile to the White Nile to Egypt will be affected. And they've already started filling it. They've filled one, two, or three increments already. And if there is a drought in Ethiopia or anywhere along the way, it will have a huge effect on life in Egypt. And so Egypt is threatened. And this is a contention between Egypt, which sees it as a threat, and Ethiopia, which sees it as a way to become a prosperous nation in so many regards. So my question to you is: we saw just a few days ago that there were Egyptian troops in Sudan, and I think they left. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
why were they there? Is Egypt trying to exercise military influence in Sudan as a way to threaten Ethiopia?
We don't know. I mean, the official line in Ethiopia, actually, we felt like Egypt will not have effectively declare a war. I mean, it's too late now. The dam is we're almost about to finish. And by the way, I mean, the existential threats, water, that Egypt doesn't have water, and building Ethiopia as a dam. I think this we should leave it for science, because some of the things are, it seems artificial for some. I am not only sure, but one thing that you raised, Jay, is drought. So I would say that drought would affect, I mean, a drought in Ethiopia would affect Egypt more than the GERD, because the GERD actually protects the water and send clean water, for that matter, for Egypt and Sudan. And as the official land construction is, I think, up to the standard. But I think from Egypt's perspective, a strong Ethiopia would use the GERD as a starting point, and so that in the future, Ethiopia will use the water more for irrigation, and that comes where the scarcity could be the issue. But now, I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah,
And
well,
the
I
Egyptians, yeah,
remember reading
yeah,
that
yeah,
Ethiopia has many factions, which you are certainly
yeah,
familiar with.
yeah,
And when the question of the dam came up, the
yeah,
factions agreed. They agreed to support that project, huge project,
yes,
because they all understood that it would be very valuable to everyone in
yeah,
Ethiopia. But now, and this is the second part of our discussion, Solomon,
yeah,
now maybe they have forgotten that they came together. Now maybe they have decided that they would they're going back to their old contentions. So, what is the status of these various factions in Ethiopia right now?
Well, I mean, just to say something about the Egyptians in Khartoum, I don't think I mean, analysts would say they are there to deter Ethiopia. But it's a foregone conclusion that Ethiopia is building the dam. About the Ethiopians and with the different factions and diversity, I think the dam was actually and is one of the unifying factor in Ethiopia, where every Ethiopians would stand and happy to build about it. And this dam is not only built by government budget, but it's also, by the contribution of citizens, including myself. We pay from our salary for the dam, so it's personal. It's really significant for Ethiopians. It's kind of, it's, as you said, it's huge for many. I mean, for economic reasons, but also, it has a regional effect. So for us, it's a show of strength, show of unity for among Ethiopians. And I would say Ethiopians are still divided on many things. But when it comes to GERD, and for that matter, when it comes to any foreign, when something foreigners engage, that's one of the unifying factors for Ethiopians. So if Egypt do something stupid or any other country, then Ethiopians will come together. That's what we have proven. I mean, throughout our
well, that's a
history.
good thing. That shows you only good things. But the question is that, is there contention? Is there disturbance? Is there violence? Is there, people committing crimes against others among these factions in Ethiopia? Dam or no dam?
No dam. There is this division with sometimes it involves armed conflict. Now, for example, like just recently, starting November 2020, there has been a bloodiest civil war in Ethiopia between the Federal Army and the Tigrayan Liberation Front troops. And also that's in the northern part of Ethiopia. In the south, especially in some parts of Oromia, there is, there will be a negotiation just tomorrow, probably. But there has been also kind of not armed conflict, but in the form of insurgents. And it's also one of the bloodiest armed conflict. They said the northern Jay is the conflict, the war between the Federal Army and the TPLF army. I don't call them army, but it cost us, I think, over 600,000 days. Not only, men and women in uniform, but women, children, the elderly, IDPs, and everyone. It was one of the deadliest civil wars that Ethiopia has in its recent time.
Oh, that's so sad. Can you compare that to what is happening in Sudan? I mean, is there a valid comparison between what is happening in Sudan with the warring generals, and can you compare that to what I would consider a complete failure of the country of Somalia right next door?
There is always similarities, be it in Sudan or in Ethiopia. There is grievances, and there is some issues with something local grievances. But what happened in Ethiopia and what's happening in Sudan, I think it's not really comparable. I mean, like, Sudan is suffering. The war is actually happening in the capital, but the Ethiopian war was the bloodiest one. I think the Sudanese will not be mad enough as we Ethiopians. But we know that bullets are shelling in the houses. I mean, in Sudan, but I don't think that the Sudanese will be mad enough as Ethiopians, because civilian infrastructures, property, school, hospitals, and everything. It was by any standard, it was not just a war between factions or between generals. It was like somehow against the public. Whoever has the opportunity to control the area, the people really greatly affected.
What about Somalia? Is there a comparison there?
Somalia's they're building. They just had a democratic election. They changed their government. It's a fragile piece. They're fighting a terrorist group, Al-Shabaab. And I think the current president is doing great job. I think accepted by many Somalis. He bring people together. And we thought actually it was striking for also for Ethiopians. Probably it's our ignorance. I don't know. When the Somalians changed their governments democratically, and it was Somalia is unique, and I think the Sudanese also they will come up with solutions because they have a strong civic society. And just recently we have heard that they in one of the cities, I don't remember the name, they stopped the civil war because religious institutions, civil servants, and all they took the street so that they prevent the fighting in Sudan. I mean that's something big in the Horn of Africa because that wasn't the case in Ethiopia. So I don't think we have any comparison. My ignorance, I will read more, but the Ethiopians, the fight that we had is really bloodiest and was stupid.
Okay, well,
Everywhere is stupid, but yeah.
I saw something about Somalia where there was a real estate boom. That comes as a surprise,
And the Somalis are very resilient. I mean, they have their bad days, but they are very resilient. They, terrorist thing happening in Mogadishu, but they continue rebuilding their country, and the current president is, I think, rallying the people behind him, and also Al-Shabaab has really losing its strongholds. They are attacking, and I think I see a good future for Somalia. And of course, on a positive note, Ethiopia is also chartering into this area because we have a cessation of hostilities in the north, and they're celebrating. And I think it's I see a good commitment on both parties. And just recently, there is the federal government is negotiating with Oromo Liberation Army, one of the armed group, which is labeled as a terrorist group. There is a negotiation going on in Tanzania. So I mean, we see also the Ethiopian piece is fragile as always, but as a moment, I think we see a good development also in Ethiopia.
Oh, good. So let's talk. Let's talk about your country. Let's talk about is it safe in Ethiopia? I'm sorry, is it safe in Addis Ababa? Is it safe for you? You're in Addis Ababa right now. So do you have to worry like people are worrying in Khartoum? Is there any danger on the street for you? Where is the violence, to the extent there is violence in Ethiopia? Where is it taking place?
Now, I mean, as we speak, there's no violence. I mean, because the violence happened in northern Ethiopia, Tigray mainly, Amhara region, and in three regions. It affects three regions mainly in Amhara, Tigray, and Afar region. And that was stopped last November with the agreement of the complete cessation of hostilities between the federal government and the TPLF in Pretoria, South Africa. And now there is a negotiation will happen between the Oromo, that the other conflict affects largely Oromia, the largest, I think one of the largest region in Ethiopia, of course, also population-wise, the biggest. And also there is a negotiation will happen in Tanzania. So now there's no at least active armed conflict in Ethiopia at the moment.
Well, that's great.
I hope, that's good news in this 2 or 3 years in Ethiopia.
So now let's talk about transitional justice. Let's talk about Project Expedite Justice. Do you have a mission to deal with accountability at this point?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, for the last question, we feel safe. I mean, safety is relative, but now we are not at least feeling like as our Sudanese brothers and sisters. It's terrible that what's happening there. Yeah, so back to PJ's mission in Ethiopia. As you know, it's the value of PJ in Ethiopia or in Sudan, wherever it operates, at the core is to bring accountability, or at least to have documents and preserve the evidences where, to create an infrastructure where accountability will happen in uh, in the future, because sometimes accountability in this part of the world is not easy, because when you talk about peace, one of the incentive for the people to accept peace is, of course, kind of immunity, that you will not be charged for the crimes that you have committed. And people, they struggle for power and they want to stay power, not to go to jail. So it's not easy for anyone with accountability mission. But PJ is here to support local partners, CSOs, to have the capability to document according to international standards, which are ADC India, I would say, usable before any tribunal, be it at local level or international level. Yeah, so we're in that mission.
So we've looked at various countries and various continents, and including, of course, Ukraine, and we've come to the conclusion as to a lot of them that there have been atrocities, there have been war crimes of all kinds, and violations of human rights. Is it fair to say that those things have also taken place among the various factions in Ethiopia? No?
Absolutely, Jay. It's documented. It's documented by local and international organization. At least, war crimes, crimes against humanity has happened. Even genocide is contested. No international organization has classified what happened. Look, for Ethiopians now, we have seen what's happening in Ukraine. It's a value war between Russians and the rest of the world. And of course, we Africans don't mind actually. I don't think we take seriously the invasion of Russia, the Putin against Ukraine. But the level of atrocity, it's beyond your imagination. If you think that what's happening somewhere else is as war crime, it's a crime, and you don't have to talk about numbers, but it's beyond your imagination what happened. So there is strong evidence, I think, somehow even admitted by the parties and in the conflict. I think war crimes and forced displacement, rape, torture, targeting civilian properties, population, direct attack, and all. It's the textbook examples of all war crimes and crimes against humanity has happened in Ethiopia. I don't think it is it's contested anymore among Ethiopians. And so what we at PJ is helping the local, or trying to help, is of course to have whatever the transitional justice. Now we're starting into transitional justice where legal reform, institutional reform, and all issues, and including, of course, accountability. Now we want to focus on building the capacity of local partners to focus on the accountability aspects, because the peace aspect that's already done by the parties at conflict, because they want to have, so they're celebrating the peace, they're celebrating each other. But DJ would say, what about the victims? As the victims are celebrating, as the victims' voice are heard, do we have a victim-centered process? That's the question that we would like to pose, and to encourage our partners to engage in the process. Transitional justice is a long process, and we would like to stay and support our partners.
Yeah, that's always a very challenging experience, to go out into the community, talk to people, have them trust you, have them tell you their stories, not be afraid, and so forth. And so is that where your work is, to make these investigations, Solomon? Are you involved in investigating what happened?
No, we at PJ basically encourage, support our partners through big capacity building. That's it starts with the training, mentoring, and also if they wish and cooperate to, through the writing process, so that's gonna be usable in any jurisdiction. But at PJ, we don't actually engage in investigation because that's the model. It's a local impact. We want actually to have its locals to own the process. It's not for the international organizations, especially, you have said that the trust issues are for people to talk about, and to have it takes a process. We're just about 3 years in Ethiopia and COVID, war, and everything you can imagine. But even in the longer process, we are thinking about staying there and also continue our work for, to lay the foundation where locals to own the process and to, to amplify their voice. And also that's with a standard, we call it according to international investigation protocols.
Yeah, that's a very important distinction. Some countries invite other countries to come in and help them do investigation and accountability. And it sounds to me like, you're more interested in having local authorities take care of this rather than bring other countries, or for that matter, the international court into the process. Am I right?
Yeah, as part of the international community, we're always open to. We should always at least open to the international communities as part of that community. But the international jurisdiction or mechanisms have their own limitations in trying, especially kind of mass atrocities. They only go after, of course, high profile criminals, that commanders or high politicians. And it's also, damn expensive. The international mechanism is expensive. So we encourage we support the locals to have, anyway, whether you use it in the local or international mechanisms, still locals has to have the evidence and has to have the say on which forums they want to choose, and, based on all considerations. Yeah.
So are we out of the woods on all of this? Are the factions who were fighting among themselves in Ethiopia, is that resolved now? Because one thing I want to throw at you is the future. And my understanding is if Ethiopia plays it right, Ethiopia will have the benefit of the GERD. It will have the benefit of this huge dam with all this water. It will be able to improve its agriculture, its jobs, its economy. It will raise itself up to be a very prosperous country. And I, for one, believe that if a country is prosperous, it doesn't have to worry so much about, the internecine battles between factions, and everyone can be happy the way people were happy when the project was first supported. So what about the future, Solomon? What do you see for the future of Ethiopia?
Honestly, I think it's very difficult to predict the future. Because in 2018, no, at least majority of Ethiopians, we never expect this would happen, like the war that we talked about just this morning. So the hope is now we're talking about peace. There seems a commitment, at least between the factions, but we don't know if someone, and sometimes like peace. Is kind of post-conflict peace agreements has its own incentive for others, so that those whose voices, those who felt whose voices are not heard at the national level, they may resort to conflict, to armed conflicts, so that the federal government will negotiate them. I honestly don't know, but I hope. Now we are talking about transitional justice, healing. It's not only, we have history issues, narratives, about the future of Ethiopia. Where should we go? What are our history? And we have different mechanisms where we're talking about it. And our hope is we will keep talking and resolve our problems through dialogue and consultation, through inclusive consultation, through, as we say, nationally owned but internationally supported process. So I hope the future will be bright, but I cannot say it's bright because there are a lot of problems, but we're talking about big problems. That's war. Otherwise, economy is an issue. As you said, this war is very, very costly, not only human life, but also economically. Probably it could have built like 2 or more GERD-like dams or any other economically importance. And we have destroyed our infrastructures, our school, our hospitals, and a long way to go to development and talk about human rights and all good stuff. Yeah.
Well, I must say, just looking at the history of Ethiopia and the geopolitical history between on the Nile, so to speak, with Egypt, it's easy to sympathize with Ethiopia. So we are rooting for
Thank you,
Solomon.
Thank you.
We want this to work out for you, and we want the dam to work out for you. And we hope that you'll be able to, come to terms with Egypt, and using modern technology, everybody will have what he wants. That's what we want. Thank you so much, Solomon.
Thank you for having me, Jay.
Yeah, thank you, Solomon. Solomon Feday from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, telling us what it's like there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.